Hello, everybody. We should be live, so we'll see if this is the case indeed. So welcome, everybody, from the Canadian Rockies. So it's morning for me, so good morning if you're in the Mountain or Pacific time zone, or if you live in the middle of the Pacific, I guess it would be morning for you as well. But if you're on the East Coast, good mid-morning, good afternoon. And if you're all the way over in Europe, another part of the world, good evening, afternoon, whatever works for you. So welcome, everybody. I'm glad that I've started this live stream. If you're here, say hello. I'm trying to watch the chat. And if you're not here, if you're watching this after the fact, welcome and feel free to comment down below. I'll be coming back to the live stream and looking at different comments. So today's live stream, I wanted to just kind of do a casual, back to school live stream, getting ready for school, getting ready for teaching, getting ready for learning, depending on which side of the equation that you're on there. And I was going to do this as a series of videos, but I thought, you know what, I'll just do sort of a back to school live stream. Got a cup of coffee, Sunday morning, and we'll sort it out. Okay, so what I wanted to do today is I wanted to talk about 3 different areas of back to school that I'm always excited about. There's the standard back to school stuff, the different classes, the curriculum development, the courses I'm taking. So whatever it might be, whether I'm a learner, whether I'm a teacher. But I wanted to talk about some technology that I really like to have for back to school. I wanted to talk a little bit about some tools, some software tools that I like to use, sort of have in my toolkit, either as a student or a teacher. And I'm not going to say that all the time. This stuff applies to either or. Some are a little bit more teacher specific, instructor specific. Some are a little bit more student specific, but I think these can all be used by everyone. And so there's the tools, some technology in there, some software, and then tips, just a few little tips of things that I think can help make your school experience better for yourself, for your students, whoever you're working with. So let's start with maybe some technology. And I'm not sure how many people are here with us this morning. It might actually be that I'm talking into a live stream by myself at this point in time. So feel free to comment down below if this is something you're doing after the live stream. But when it comes to technology, there are a few different things that I wanted to talk about in terms of what I find very useful when I'm in school. And if you have things that you find particularly useful, please comment and let me know what they might be as well. So some of the things that I like to bring with me into class, and I'm not going to go into computers because, whether you're a Mac user, PC user, whether you want to use a Surface, whether you want to use a MacBook or have an M1 if you're at home, Mac Mini if you're at home, M1, M2. I wanted to talk about some of the things that I'll just pop into my backpack or my bag. And one of the things that I'm trying to do is be as self-contained as I can when I go into the classroom to make sure that I have all of the things I might need. So I'm going to pop over to a screen here where you guys can see the top of my desk, hopefully. So hopefully you're seeing the top of my desk, and I have a few little technology things that I like to bring with me. So it's a little bit of a show and tell, but absolutely feel free to chime in with things that you like. So the first thing I really have discovered recently that I really like is this Anker battery pack. So this here is something that I just recently picked up, and it is a charger. Now this is a 100-watt charger, so I can charge my iPad off of it, and I can also charge my Surface. So I have a little Surface that I carry with me, and I find this very useful. I can also, of course, do USB charging. So if I want to charge my AirPods or something. And so it's a battery bank, but it's also a charger. So what I'll do is when I'm in the classroom, if I have access to an outlet, I'll actually plug it in, and then I can charge devices, but it's also building up the battery charge in here. And then that allows me to, if I don't have an outlet, I can still charge off of this device. And that's why I really like this one. I have the other chargers that are simply a charging puck, but this one having the battery built into it actually is even more useful. It has a USB-C cable that comes with it in a nice little carrying pouch. But one of the things that I always want to bring with me when I'm going into a classroom environment, have in my bag, is some way to provide power through charging and or through battery. And this has both, so I'm kind of happy with that. So that's sort of the first thing that I would have as a tech tool. So you can see here, that's the idea. Is I'm going to talk about a few different things and show them, and you can feel free to comment on which ones you think you'll find useful, and I'll talk a little bit about how I use them all. So we're kind of focusing right now on just some different technical devices that I have. The other thing that is absolutely indispensable to me, that I absolutely can't live without, is a hub. Now this one here is a little 14-in-1 hub that I use. I think it's this one here, Moken. And I do have links to some of these things, not all of them, but some of them down below. This one here I really like because a lot of times if I'm teaching or if I'm presenting as a student, I'll have a podium that's connected out to a projector. That's great. A lot of projectors are HDMI, and it's got a couple of HDMI ports here. But this particular one, and this is, you'll have to look at your environment. It does give me a network cable, a network interface. So I have a RJ45 adapter here, so I can go out onto the network. That's super handy. Just make sure that if you are going to use this, you bring a cable with you. I usually have a little 1 or 2 foot cable in my bag with me as well. And this is the key for this particular one. This one has a VGA out. And the reality is that a lot of the different schools out there that I go to will have older projectors, older equipment. So that VGA is often a real lifesaver. And then it has all the other ports you'd expect, some USB-C, has some media ports in there, 3130 USB. And it has this hidden port here, which is an audio port as well. So that can be handy. Obviously, if I'm going out HDMI, that has audio in it. If I'm going out VGA and I want to get out to the podium audio, then I may need to connect in the 355 mil adapter in there. So that's a pretty handy device as well. So, those are just two of my initial, these are things I throw in my bag right away because I find them super handy. They don't take up too much space. The battery has a little bit of weight to it. The hub is pretty much negligible, but these are two absolute devices that I put in my bag all the time. Now, other devices that I might pop in my bag when it comes to tech, and these are maybe not as prevalent, but they are useful. And actually, just before I move on to some of the other devices, this is going to seem a little bit boring, but a cable. Now, why, you might say, do I have this cable with me? This is a USB-C to USB-C cable. And here's the thing with this. Make sure you get a cable that is capable of 100 watt power. So if you're going to use this with a power bank or either a power bank or a charger, you want to make sure that you have a cable that can handle the 100 watt charging. That is a bit of a gotcha. So you make sure when you're looking for USB-C to USB-C cables, you have that. This is handy because I can charge my Surface with it as well as charging my iPad with it. If you are charging your AirPods or anything, you'll want to double click on there and get this little green light. And that is what's called trickle charging. And that's just for charging things like AirPods and such. Anyways, that's the cable in there. I want to make sure you have that. The other devices, which are more of a nice to have, but I still do like them, two things. So the first one is small. So these are, I would only use one of these, not both of these. I tend to use this one. It's a little bit heavier and a little more robust. This one is super light and compact, but what are they? They're iPad stands. So what I can do with these is I can put my iPad on here. So for example, one of the things that I like to do is have my iPad next to me when I'm reading a book and such. So this particular iPad stand is very light. It's good for a smaller iPad. You can adjust it. It's good for an iPhone. You can put it in landscape mode. This one here is nice, but the one that I tend to use more is the larger one here. Even though it's a little bit heavier, it's a little bit more in my backpack, it still is pretty nice. It comes down to a pretty small footprint when it goes into my bag. It's a little bit nice and stiff there. So, but I use this one, excuse me, with my my iPad Pro. And the reason I use this one with my iPad Pro is because with my iPad Pro, it's a bigger screen. It's a heavier screen. And let's say I'm reading this book, How People Learn, and I want to be able to take notes on my computer while I'm working on this book. I can go in, and then this becomes like a really nice stand. You can get a little foldable keyboard. I have that somewhere else. I have videos on that, but that would be something that I really find very, very useful, especially for reading any type of research papers or any type of reading, actually. And if I want to watch a movie or a video, like a video from Learning and Technology with Frank, then I could put that right there. So that's some of the tech that I use there. And then the last piece of tech that I'll show you today that I usually carry with me. Now, this one here is a little bit different because everything so far that I've shown you is very small. So everything here, you know, that's really not going to take up too much room in my backpack. You know, my charger, my cable, my hub, and my iPad stand. But one of the things that I will do is I'll also, especially because if you've watched the channel, you know I'm a big fan of digital whiteboards. So I'll always have a little tablet here with me. So this one here is one that I might just put in my office at school if I have an office, or I will carry. This is, you know, once you take it out of the packaging, you've got your cable, you've got your stylus, but especially for teachers, this is very, very useful because if I'm working with a digital whiteboard, this is going to give me the ability to use a stylus instead of using my mouse to draw. If I have an iPad with a pencil, or if I have a Surface, such as my Surface Pro, then I could use the pen and draw right on the screen. However, even then, I sometimes prefer to have it as a separate on the side. I don't know. You get used to being able, if you've used these for a bit, these graphic tablets, you get very used to using them for things like digital whiteboards. And then in my case, I'm now spoiled. I can't live without the digital whiteboard. So now I'm in a situation where, I use the digital whiteboard for almost everything, and then I can use that pen and it adds that functionality. So that's really that's the tech that I'm bringing back to school with me. Comment if you have different tech that you like to use. If you're watching this after the fact, comment down below. So in my case, my little package of tech is my iPad. Well, the number one thing is my hub. That's number one. Can't live without that. Number two would be my battery charger. Number three would be my iPad stand. And then the number four would be the tablet. Although the iPad stand and the graphics tablet are probably pretty equivalent. I like them pretty much at the same level. But if I had to drop one or the other, actually, I might drop the iPad stand and take the tablet. But anyways, it doesn't matter. It's the charger and the hub that are the two number one pieces of tech. Now, obviously, there's other pieces of tech that I could bring with me. Some of the other things could be like a remote for doing presentations. That's a nice to have, not necessarily a must-have device for me. I can click the button on the computer if I need to progress through PowerPoints or any type of visualization. But I have a little Logitech remote that I use there. I do like to click that. Let me know of any little tiny tech pieces that you like to have when you're working, teaching or learning in class that help you out. And the question often comes up, well, why don't you just use your phone for everything? Well, obviously your phone's not a hub, it's not a charger, it's not so some of this tech is not phone centric. When we talk about some of the software, such as recording, well, I won't talk about recording here, but like say I wanted to do recording, I could record using my phone, but actually if I am recording, I'll often bring in like a little Zoom H1N. It's over there, so I won't show you that one live. But I have a little handy recorder that I bring with me, and I'll just use that if I want to record my lecture for some reason. So there's also another software trick. If you don't want to bring a piece of hardware, you can actually I'll show you that. So let's just pop in, and I'll pop into my screen here. Let's pop into the screen here. And so hopefully you guys can see my main screen here. Yeah, so if you're working with any Microsoft applications, let me just pop into Word. So I'll bring up Word. And when you're in Word, I'll show you a little bit of a trick that you can use in order to record lectures. If you don't have like a little Zoom handy recorder, you can do this. Let me just remove this for now. Okay, so I'm underneath Word. I'm just going to open up a new blank document. And we'll make this full screen so you can see it a little bit better. So underneath Word, you actually have this dictate button. So if you go into the dictate button, you can go in there and notice there's dictate and transcribe. So if you go in and you do transcribe, so I'll do transcribe. And now when I start talking, it will transcribe, oh, English. So I'll just go in here, start recording. And now I'm recording. Everything I say will now be transcribed into text. So as I go through, I will now have a recording of all of the things I have said. When I go and save that transcription, it'll upload it to my OneDrive. And then you'll actually see here that it will now go in. It takes a little while to transcribe it. But anyways, the idea behind this is I now have it saved as a transcription. I've recorded that, and you can even see that it's written it out. So you can see that I've got it, and it even has speaker attribution. Now, in my case, I can edit this. So if I know that I was the only speaker, I could say, but if I was a student and I was recording the lecture, I could say instructor in there. And if other students were asking questions, I could edit that if I wanted to. A lot of times I just want to record the classroom. That, of course, does presuppose that whatever device you're using, a laptop with Word on it, is got a good enough microphone to pick up what's being said at the front of the class, which hopefully is the case, because hopefully you're understanding everything that the instructor is saying. So if you're hearing it, hopefully your computer's hearing it as well. So that's some of the tech that I have. You know, that was an example of a tool, the Microsoft Word. I want to show you a few other tools that I like to bring into class. Some of these are software tools. So let's take a look at some software tools. And I think I'm going to go over to the screen here. In fact, I'll go here. There we go. So I'm going to go into a web browser. So I'll just bring that up, and I'll just drag a couple things over. So when it comes to things like note-taking, I have a couple of tools that I use. If I'm doing kind of ideation, where I'm trying to create ideas and connections, and let me just grab a example. Great, now I'm going to have a little bit in my throat here. I have to have some coffee. So here's an example of a tool that I'll use. This is MindJet Mind Manager, and this is a mind mapping software that I'll use in terms of, this happens to be my course design mind map. So if I'm building a new course, this is the method that I will use in order to develop a new course. So I'll go through, I'll have an overview, resources, a schedule, and then this module piece here will repeat. So if I have, 10 modules, you'll see this repeat. Actually, you can see it's one module here. So for every module, I'll go through, set objectives, set time frames, set evaluation rubrics against each of the objectives, set up lesson plans. So I'll storyboard that out, set up lab requirements or hands-on practical learning, and then have a summary or a review activity in order to create summation for each of the activities. And then you'll see from a course standpoint that I'll do all of the modules, and then I'll do actual course capstones, set up instructional resources, those types of things. So this is MindJet Mind Manager. I find this to be a very useful tool that I like to use if I create other things. So let's just pop back to, I think if I go back to the home here, yeah, go into my files here. You can see there's a whole bunch of different templates you can use in order to create different mind maps. If I go into my specific files, and this is the web interface that I'm using of Mind Manager, you can also install it directly on your device here. But let's go into something like, I'll go in All About You. So one of the lectures I do at the beginning of each cohort that I have is something called the All About You lecture. And you can see in here that I'm able to go in, I'm able to create a walkthrough. So I can actually create this as a presentation for my class, and then I can walk through each element of getting them onboarded into the classroom environment. So I'm teaching postgraduates in a post-secondary institution, but this is also fantastic, I would imagine, because I don't teach K to 12, but comment if you're a K to 12 teacher, comment after the video and let me know what you're using in terms of orienting people, and if you have any visual tools like Mind Manager. The other tool that I use for note-taking, excuse me, this is a little bit newer to me because I've just started using this in about the past maybe 2 months, about 2 months, maybe a little more than 2 months. They're actually in beta right now, but this is called SCintel, and you can sign up for their open beta. Now I have to sneeze. Excuse me. If you have one sneeze, you might as well have two. So this is an example of where I'm breaking down resources. So here I have a breakdown of some books that I'm studying. So I'm studying a book right now on intelligence analysis. Hopefully I'm not sneezing through the rest of this live stream. So here I've got structured and analytic techniques for intelligence analysis. And I have videos dedicated to this specific product on my channel as well. But you can see here that I can do more markup language note taking here, and I can create connections here. So this becomes a useful tool as well. And that's the SCintel tool that I use in there as well. So between SCintel and MindJet Mind Manager, I do find that I'm able to really capture a lot of information and also share that information and work with it. Now, the other thing, of course, is collaboration. So if I want to do any type of collaboration, and let me grab another browser window here and bring it over. Okay, so one of the tools, another classic tools, which I'm somewhat sure that you guys are familiar with if you've been teaching for a while, it's called Padlet. So I'll use Padlet to create interactive conversations. So they have different plans that you have. In my case, I have a plan, a pro plan, so I can make multiple Padlets. So if I go back to my account here, you can see I make multiple Padlets. I clean them up, although I do need to do some cleaning up on my Padlets here. But you can see that, if I create a Padlet, this is going to allow me to create an interactive type of scenario. I'm just going to go ahead and just choose a standard here. It's going to create a generic Padlet. I'm not going to go in tons of detail on the live stream just because I have dedicated videos to all of these. But what I can do here is when I create the Padlet, I can give this URL to my students, and we can all go in and we can, put in all sorts of interesting stuff in here, add video, add files, whatever the case may be. And this becomes a Padlet that we've created. Let me see if I can find a Padlet that's a little bit exciting in here. I don't want to really show a student Padlet just because it might have names associated with it. So let's do some generic Padlet in here. But Padlet's a great tool. It's one that I use all the time for creating a conversation to begin a class. Sometimes what I'll even do is I'll create the Padlet, I'll post it onto a Teams site, and then I'll ask students over the next, I'll say overnight, go to Padlet. This is your homework assignment. Go to Padlet and put in a few ideas. Tomorrow morning when we come back, we'll debrief it. Just be sensitive to make sure that students are able to do that they have a computer at home with a web browser or an iPhone or some device where they can participate. If not, give them class time to participate, and then they can participate, create some thoughts, and then that can be a great starting point. So I like to use Padlet quite a bit. And then just as a fun other tool, and again, this is just a survey of a bunch of tools that I like to use. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with something called the Wheel of Names. When it comes to Wheel of Names, this is something I use all the time in my classroom. This is a great little tool. If I need to go through and choose somebody who needs to maybe do a presentation. Now, when it comes to the Wheel of Names here, we'll just go ahead and refresh this. There we go. So the Wheel of Names, so this is just an example here, but what happens with the Wheel of Names is if you spin it, it will go through and then it'll choose randomly one of the students to present. And so, yay, we're all good. And then, for example, if it's, time for people to present something, maybe I have an exercise, maybe I have team names in here, maybe it's group presentations. Once they've presented, I remove it, and it goes through here. Now, you can do a lot of things. You can go in and you can actually just paste in comma separated values. So if you have a list of students in your class, You can go in and you can paste it in there. You can see the results. So you can see Beatrice last time was the one. Here are the entries for somebody coming in here. So a lot of things you can do with Wheel of Names. Really handy little tool. So we have that handy little tool as well. Some of the other tools are a little bit more specialized. So one of the tools that I often will start class with as well is I'll have students come in and they'll have a Mac computer. And some of the software that we're using will be Windows-based. So in order to get somebody on a Mac able to use a Windows operating system, a lot of times what I will do is I will have them go and get this software called Parallels. So Parallels Desktop is a virtualization software for a Mac. What I like about Parallels is not only can I now run Windows on my Mac, but it runs it very well. So I still recommend that my students have a Mac that hopefully has 16 gigs of RAM, and you'll need enough hard drive space to have the machine. Again, I've got videos dedicated just to this, and I'm just in the middle of making a Parallels 19 video, so that'll be posted soon. But when it comes to running Windows and such, this is a great option to run Windows on a Mac. I usually like to have a Mac with 16 gigs or more of RAM. You can run it on an 8 gig Mac, but it runs really nice on an M1 or an M2. I use it all the time on my Mac Mini. So I have a Mac Mini located just over to the side here. I use it quite a bit, and it's on another desk. And I use that one for a lot of work, but I run Parallels on there so that I can quickly work with Windows if I need to as well. And not just Windows. You can also use it for Linux. Now, if you're running a Mac, you know that the terminal is Unix, but a lot of times I want to have a separate dedicated Linux box so that if anything goes wrong, I'm not affecting my host system, my Mac. I'm just affecting the virtual machine. I can always delete and recreate it. So if we're doing anything around cybersecurity, if we're doing anything around networking, if we're doing anything where a Linux box can be quite useful for teaching those concepts, but I don't want people to wipe out their computer and put Linux on it, then on a Mac, I can use Parallels. I also use VMware on my PC. And I have videos on that as well. So that's another useful tool getting ready for the new year. And then the final sort of software tool that I'll show you here is, let's see if I have it here. Yeah, I do. So one of the things that we have is we start building a lot of files up. So we start winding up with a lot of files, especially in my case, because I do a lot of videos, as you can see if you've subscribed to the channel. And if not, subscribe to the channel. But because I have so much volume of data that I'm creating, for a long time, I used to recommend to students that they had an external hard drive. And I do still use external hard drives. That's another tech piece that I'll sometimes bring with me. I have a little lacy 4 gig external hard drive, USB-C. And when it comes to external hard drives, there's kind of two schools of thought: capacity versus speed. Now, generally speaking, if I want speed, I want it to be on the solid state drive of whatever system I'm using. If I want capacity, then I'm not as much worried about the speed. I just want a lot of capacity, a lot of storage. Well, I'm now using this Sync.com. I happen to have, because I work, the way I work, I have a lot of files. So I have the team plan. So I can have a team member, 2 members of a team, and it's unlimited storage. So I have terabytes and terabytes worth of storage here in the cloud-based Sync.com. It's encrypted and secure, and I have videos on that. But the thing I wanted to show you here is that when it comes to Sync.com, you have files, and all of the files that you put in this file section are synchronized with any device that you've installed the Sync software onto. So if I was to put a file here, it would now synchronize with my Mac and with my Surface. So all of my devices, even with my phone. So I have this file, this AI art folder, is synchronized across all my devices. So if I do something at work where I put in some AI art into this folder, when I come home on my Mac, it'll be synchronized. And it also has this other thing called the Vault. Now, the vault are all for files that are not synchronized across all my devices. Because if I'm in the file section, and let's say it's 1 terabyte worth of storage, or say 500 gigs worth of storage, that's 500 gigs that's being synchronized to all of my devices. Now, I can go in on a per device basis and select not to synchronize everything, but a lot of times I do want them synchronized. However, there are certain files that I want to keep, but I just don't have I don't have 20 terabytes of storage across all my devices. So I'll go to the vault, and anything that I put in the vault will be available to me here on sync.com, and I can download it, and it's protected, and I can go back to previous versions, all sorts of features. Again, this isn't a feature video. This is more of what I'm bringing back to school video. But what I'll do is I'll move things from the file section to the vault section when I no longer need them. So as an example, let's say I'm making a video. So here, let's say I'm making a video here on the NearHub S13. So that was that tablet that I showed you. Let's say I'm finished with that video. I'll select it. I could share it with others, so you can do that as well. But the other thing I can do is just move it, and I'm just going to move that over to the vault. So now what I've done is that file, that folder, was synchronized on all of my devices. I've now just moved it over to the vault. So now what it's going to do is it's going to still store it for me on sync.com, and I have unlimited storage, but it's now going to remove it from all the devices, so I'm not taking up local disk space. So this is something I find very handy as well, and I like the way that sync.com works. I like the fact that it's unlimited storage. I've used Dropbox before, and I still do for some stuff because I have an account with another business that I'm working with, and so I do tend to have a few. Sometimes I have replicated resources. So Dropbox and OneDrive, of course, comes with Office 365. But the challenge I have, there are multiple challenges I have with both OneDrive, iCloud, Dropbox, and those services. Sync.com is kind of my best fit because you can see here sync.com. And if I look in here and I see what folders are in here, notice that the NearHub is not in here anymore. So I don't have NearHub in here. If I was to take another file here, I'll do AI art because I'm not working with it right now. If I go ahead and move that over to the vault as well, right? Move that over to the vault. And if I go back to my file system here, you'll see my sync folder. That's the one that's local to this computer. It just disappeared. So you can see that it will now move it to the vault, still available to me, but no longer synchronized locally across my devices. So that's another piece of technology that I use. So, a lot of different pieces of technology: SCintel for taking notes, MindJet Mind Manager for taking notes, Parallels for creating a virtual machine on my Mac, sync.com so that I have my files. So I put all my teaching material on sync.com. I can get it no matter where I am, either by going into the vault and pulling it down or by having it synchronized across devices. Padlet is a great communication collaboration tool. Get conversations going, create some interactive conversations that I can then facilitate, and then the wheel of names for selecting. All of these things have much more depth to them, and I try to do my best to keep videos up on the channel that'll help you with those. Comment again down below, either now or after the fact, on any different type of software or particular pieces of technology that you use that you think are very useful. I'd be very interested. So I guess, the last thing I want to talk about in the live stream, and it's actually going for quite some time here. So hopefully I'm providing you with some interesting different tools and techniques that you can use in your own classroom or either as a learner or as a teacher. The other things that I want to talk about are a few more little devices. So let me just pop in here, go back to my desktop here. So technology is great. We have wonderful little pieces of hardware. We have wonderful little software out there, hardware out there. The other thing that I want to talk about are just some tools and techniques. Now, I've made videos again on this as well. So one of the things that I do like to have my students be aware of very early on is the Pomodoro Technique, the idea of using study timers. This is your classic tomato Pomodoro. Pomodoro is the word is tomato in Italian. And then I use this timer here. So what I'll often do is I'll set a timer for the period of time that I want to study. The only thing I don't like about this particular timer is I wish I could put a specific time. So I could do 20 minutes or 30 minutes. I usually like to do 25 minutes. And you might say, oh, use your phone. And the only problem with using my phone is that my phone then becomes a distraction as opposed to supporting it. So I tend to do 30 minutes. So I'll do a little 30 minutes, take a break, 30 minutes, take a break. Now, I'm not going to review the Pomodoro technique, but I do bring a timer with this one here, actually. I do bring a timer with me whenever I go into a classroom or an area where I know I'm going to be studying. And I do like to have a separate timer than my phone or even my computer, because I want it to be a dedicated device just for that purpose, because that creates a little bit more focus in my case. I tend to get excited and drift off and do things. So, to each their own. The other thing that I like to do is some book resources that I wanted to show you. I think I've shown you some of these before. So when it comes to students, one of my favorite books out there is Learning How to Learn. This one here is for kids and teens, but the concepts in here are applicable to every age group. And there is another book. I have it on my Kindle, which is another hardware device that I really like. So I have it on my Kindle. It's called Learn Like a Pro. So it's also, and this one's Science-Based Tools for Learning. That's a little bit aimed at maybe a little bit of an older group in there, and then Learning How to Learn. But both of these books, Learn Like a Pro and Learning How to Learn, are books that I really, really think should almost be given away to all students for free, but obviously that's not the case. But I do really recommend these for setting students up for success. And then as an instructor, there's Uncommon Sense Teaching, which is also, these are all written by Barbara Oakley, and depending on the book, I have co-authors for them as well. But generally, if you look up Barbara Oakley, PhD, you'll find all her books. She also has a Mind for Numbers, which is for people that are mathematically wanting to learn things. So learn things around math. So this book here is more aimed at instructors and teachers. Fantastic book as well. So Uncommon Sense Teaching, Learning How to Learn, and Learn Like a Pro. And these books, for example, I think all three of them have a section on the Pomodoro Technique, which I was just talking about, the timers there. So those are all really good resources as well. And then another set of resources, I think I've talked about these on the channel before. And there's a lot of books that I like, by the way. If you want to have a book club on teaching, let me know. I'm really a big fan of cards. So I'll often bring, I don't usually bring, well, I definitely don't bring all of these with me every time I go to class, but I have these hard copy. I have the hard copy of these card decks that I bring in to use in my classroom. There is an app that you can get for your phone called Deckable, and it has, for example, the Transform deck on there in digital format, plus a bunch of other card decks. I'm not sure. I know that these PIP decks are not available on that particular app. But what I like about these, let's take the Transform deck, and it could be any of these decks. The other one I really like are the Creative and the Critical Thinking decks. But the Transform deck is really quite good, because what it allows me to do is it allows me to create lesson plans and activities by going through these cards, and you'll go through and it'll give you instructions on how to use the card, right? And then what you're doing is you can either go random, you can just pick a random card. You can do things like create combinations of cards to create a workshop or a activity for your classroom. And these are the different levels, beginner level. And anyways, you can go through and different ways of using the cards. So I'll just go into the cards. So for example, here's an activity you could do. You could critique an example. So a video, an image, or a text. You could comment down below and critique this video too. And you can see that it can be part of a combination. And to critique an example, there'll be an example of what the activity looks like. There'll be some tips to make that activity successful. So that's a great one. Your quizzes we're all familiar with, but you can do a quick fire quiz. And then there's different categories of cards. This is just one deck, by the way. The other decks I really like are the Workshop Tactics by Pip decks. You've got Storyteller Tactics, you've got Workshop Tactics, but a lot of these decks kind of work the same way, where there's a bit of a grouping of the different areas, and then usually there's a description of what you're doing. So this is populate the model, learners populate a visual representation with examples. So this could be something you might combine with, you could combine this with Padlet, or you could combine this on your own with MindJet Mind Manager, or you could even combine this with your note-taking, use a markup language in SCintel. And you can see the productivity and some of the tips around that. So these are all really great different ways of creating workshops. And this is one of my favorite decks, this Transform deck. And it's by a company called Untold Play, although it's by an individual who's a great guy. So this is Untold Play is where you'll find it. That's a company by an individual in the UK, in the United Kingdom, I believe. And I highly recommend this deck. It is available on Deckable. And then these are just fun decks that, well, fun, they're very useful, but I will pull these out in a classroom when I'm working on something, especially if I'm trying to teach critical thinking. Workshop Tactics by Pip decks. Pip decks, the only ones I have are Workshop Tactics and Storyteller Tactics. They also have a couple of other decks out there as well. And those decks are on leadership and teamwork and such. And it's, again, the same idea is that you'll have this one on the other side. You'll have stories that motivate, and then it'll say, go and pull these cards, and this will create a story that motivates, or help you create a story that motivates. So I use these all the time in terms of building out my lesson plans. So if you go back to that mind map that I showed you a little bit earlier, where I show you how I create lesson plans, that's I'll then combine them with these card decks and, really get some good lesson plans in play, do my very best to create some excitement in the classroom and get people learning very well. All right. So the other things to bear in mind is all of the things I've shown you around, physical hardware technology, different tools that we have, the different software, and then some of the different tips. There are other tips that you can use, and a lot of these could come from the books that I showed you. So getting students to work with both focused and diffused mode thinking, that's a tip that comes from one of the books. Going through and things like spaced repetition and building structures for spaced repetition or iterative learning. These are all great ways to also help your students succeed, help yourself succeed. All right. So that's what I really wanted to go through and share today. I'm not sure if this time works for people. Right now, just so you know, it's about 9:48 Mountain Time in North America. So it's in the morning, early Sunday morning. So I'm not sure if this is the best time for folks to come in and meet. I was doing later on Sundays at 6 p.m. on Sundays. But you know what? This is recorded, and that's really what I wanted to do. Just wanted to have an early morning chat about education and about different ways that we can help our students succeed, how we can help ourselves succeed. And I thought the timing would be good for back to school. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Let me know what hardware you find essential to have in your classroom. Let me know what software that you're using in order to collaborate, work with others, help others learn, help yourself learn. And let me know any tips or tricks that you think are important in terms of improving your learning, and if there's any tools you use to help you with those. So in my case, I use cards to help me with storytelling, workshops, creating curriculum, critical thinking, creativity, all of those things. I use a timer for the Pomodoro Technique. There's other things you can use for spaced repetition. There's so many tools out there, but we shouldn't lose the forest for the trees. We should always think to ourselves, what is it we're trying to do? What's a tool that can help me do that? And obviously the first question is, why do I want to do this or this or that? So anyways, let me know in the comments below. Thank you. I don't know if anybody was able to join us for the live stream, which is always kind of a weird scenario. I'm kind of talking to myself as if I had an audience, but hopefully people are watching this after the fact, and hopefully you'll take some time to comment down below. Thank you so much for watching us, and we will see you in the next video or the next live stream. here on YouTube, and we'll talk to you later. Bye now. Take care.